every single person is on an S curve. We've been talking about how you can use the S curve to demystify personal growth. What that means then is that every person that you work with, every person that works for you is also on an S curve. And one of the challenges that we sometimes have is how do we want to grow the people who work for us. We want to develop them, but we're not sure how. We're not sure how to have that conversation. And the S curve can help you have a conversation. It can help you say, all right, so here's where I think you are in the S curve. Where do you think you are on the S curve? And oh, by the way, we have an assessment or a tool that allows you to assess, all right, here's where I think I am. I just took this assessment. This is what the assessment's telling me. So now you can triangulate on where you think you are, where the assessment says you are, where your manager says you are. And then you can have a conversation. Are you on the launch point? Well, if you know you're on the launch point, then you know what experience you're having. You can trace this emotional experience that you're having because the S curve traces the emotional arc of growth. So you know, I'm feeling overwhelmed, I'm feeling discouraged, I'm feeling like an imposter. Well, now you know what's next. You know that if you're at the launch point, you need support. The support might come in the form of training. It might come in the form of encouragement. It might come in the form of, I need more feedback about what's working, what isn't. It might come in the form of valuing the fact that you are at the launch point. You're coming from a different industry. You're coming from a different department in your organization. You've got this perspective of why do we do it like this, which sometimes we don't like to listen to, but in fact, that new perspective can actually be very helpful for you as an organization from an innovation standpoint. So once you know that about the launch point, then you know what's next. If people are in the sweet spot, you know they are going fast. What they need is focus. They need you to help them prioritize. They need you to help them focus on what's working, and they need you to focus on them because they're going fast, they're doing well. They need you to acknowledge the good work that they're doing. And then what do you know if they show up in mastery? Well, you know they need a challenge because they're no longer learning. They're no longer getting those feel-good effects that come from learning. They're starting to potentially get bored. And when you get bored, you can become complacent, or you can decide to jump to a new curve. Now, if a person is a low performer, great if they jump to a new curve, but if they are a high performer and you want to retain them, then the question becomes, how do I make sure that they can find a way to either move to a new curve or take on a new challenge that effectively pushes them back into the sweet spot of the curve? So now as a manager, you can say, if I know where people are at the launch point, I know they need support. If they're in the sweet spot, I know they need focus. And if they're in mastery, I know they need a challenge. And that's the individual piece. That's the talent development piece. But you can also then, once you plot where your people are on the curve, you can actually manage your team as a portfolio of S curves. Because if you're looking for innovation, what happens? People at the launch point, they ask those questions. Why do we do it like that? This, which opens the door to innovation, but they need a lot of training. So you don't really want more than 20% of your people at the launch point. The people in mastery are able to be a touchstone, to be that institutional memory, which is very helpful of bringing other people along the curve. But also they're going to need to go do something new. So you don't want more than 20% of your people in mastery because you've got this cliff eventually. You want most of your people, at least 60%, in their sweet spot. Why? Because they're not only capable of asking, why do we do it like this? Because they're not all the way up the mountain. They can still see the base and the peak. But they're capable, because they're in this place of high performance where growth is fast, of actually executing on those ideas. And so, again, you can use the S curve to develop your people to have a conversation about growth, but you can also then manage your team as a portfolio of curves